UFC Vegas 24, Whittaker versus Gastelum. Pretty good card. This is the full card predictions and betting preview. Let's start it off with the first fight of the night. But before we do, make sure you guys smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on those post notifications too so you don't miss any predictions. But let's start it off. First fight of the night. Tony Gravely versus Anthony Meerschaert. Gravely is a hell of a wrestler. Very difficult guy to deal with. I mean, his wrestling attack is constant. He's a very high-paced, high-pressure fighter. Anthony Meerschaert, definitely more of a kickboxer, is known for some punching power. Does have some pretty good kicks as well. Overall, definitely solid kickboxer, but I do feel he has a questionable chin. Has been put away in previous fights. Was beat up in his last fight against Gustavo Lopez. I think Tony Gravely's the better pick to make here. He's a minus 300 favorite to the plus 240 dog. I don't love a bet in this matchup, but I do think Tony Gravely, being the better wrestler, should be able to get the win. I could also see him getting the TKO later in the fight, maybe end of the second or the third round here. I'm going to ride Tony Gravely, but not going to be somebody that's in my main picks for the betting. I feel like he should win, and I think he will win, but not an absolute lock, because Meerschaert definitely will have the puncher's chance. He does have some power, but also has that questionable chin. Now, the next fight is Austin Hubbard versus Dakota Bush. This is a fun matchup. Bush taking this fight on very short notice, but he's only the plus 155 underdog. That's not terrible to the minus 175 favorite, Austin Hubbard. I like this matchup. If you remember Hubbard, he beat Max Roshkop a while back. For Dakota Bush, 2-fight win streak for him. He's a pretty decent kickboxer from what I've seen, and he does like that low calf kick. Very dangerous move. It's a very effective move. We've seen a lot of guys nowadays use it. He does start fast, and he is fairly aggressive. Also does have a pretty good wrestling skill set. Granted, Austin Hubbard does well against wrestlers, does have some losses to the better wrestlers, but is usually pretty durable. His last fight was submitted in the first round against Josephine, but I feel like Hubbard, pretty good kickboxing, good wrestling defense, definitely a resilient guy who's known for weathering the storm. I think that this is a competitive fight. Bush taking it on short notice. There's always going to be questions about the gas tank. I can't confidently pick Dakota Bush here to pull off the upset, but he very well may be a live dog. He is a pretty good fighter. I'm still going to ride Austin Hubbard, though. I do think he gets the win by a decision here in a fight that is fairly competitive. But I feel like Hubbard will have the slight edge in this matchup, and I am picking him to win against Dakota Bush. Everything else similar. Granted, 2-inch reach advantage in favor of Bush, but I like Hubbard here by a competitive decision, especially Bush taking the fight on short notice. Next fight of the night, Fern versus Josephine Nunes. I'll be honest, not looking forward to this fight. I think it's going to be bit of an awkward fight. If you know Fern, extremely unorthodox and kind of strange striking style. Is very aggressive, though, and definitely is effective at times with the striking. Big 1-2s that she'll throw down the line. Josephine Nunes, very stiff style, maybe similar to like a John Lineker-esque. Not at that level, though, and will look to close distance similar to Lineker or Andrade. She is the shorter girl in this matchup. Don't have the exact height, but I believe she's around 5'6". Fern listed at 5'8", but she might be upwards of 5'10", 5'11". I think Tapology may be incorrect there with the height. The younger fighter is Nunes. I don't know how she's the minus 135 favorite. I mean, there was a bit of footage that I saw on her. It wasn't a ton, and it wasn't super impressive. Same with Fern. She's been finished in both her UFC fights. I'll be honest, I wouldn't bet on this one. I would definitely skip it. I think it can go either way. I think this could potentially be a very weird fight. It's in the bantamweight division. I feel like Nunes, though, will be a bit better and should pull off the submission victory over Fern here inside of 2 rounds. That's going to be my pick, is a Nunes submission in 2. Not 100% confident that I think Fern could have a chance, but haven't been super impressed by either. Hopefully they come out and prove me wrong when the fight begins. Now, next fight of the night is Gerald Meerschaert versus Bartosz Fabinski. Meerschaert has looked terrible as of late. Has 2 really bad knockout losses back-to-back. He's looking to bounce back against Bartosz Fabinski, who's no easy out, a very good grappler, has good top control, but this is kind of the perfect matchup for Gerald Meerschaert. He's a southpaw, Fabinski not a southpaw, but Meerschaert being the southpaw could be maybe a tricky advantage on the feet, but really not the best striker. Meerschaert has some amateuristic tendencies, a bit hittable down the center line, is definitely a grappling specialist and has a very good submission game. Now, Bartosz Fabinski is a bit of a grinding wrestler. He does have a judo background and some pretty good takedowns offensively. I think this is a grappling heavy fight here. I feel like Fabinski might be able to land the takedowns and get some control against the cage of Meerschaert, but Meerschaert will be dangerous from the bottom position. We might end up getting a really sloppy striking match if both them, cancel each other's grappling out. This is a hard one to bet. I wouldn't go throw the house down on Gerald Meerschaert. I do think he's going to be coming with the fire lit under his ass, but I don't necessarily think that's enough. I feel like Bartosz Fabinski, by a grinding decision, a lot of clinch control against the cage is going to be my prediction. I would skip the bet here in this matchup. Odds are -135 for Fabinski, +110 for Meerschaert. Picking Fabinski, but not saying go bet on him. I personally am not going to be. And I don't think there's much value in the dog in Meerschaert here. He's taken some tough losses, and I just feel Fabinski should get it done. The next fight of the night, Jessica Penne, coming back from a long time away. She takes on Lupita Godinez. Godinez is a pretty skilled girl. It's going to be a difficult fight for Jessica Penne, who has not looked great in recent bouts and hasn't fought since 2017. I call her an okay kickboxer. Definitely hittable down the center line. Lacks a lot of head movement and doesn't really throw versatile combinations, a bit of just one-shot fighter, and also is not super athletic, but on the ground is more than capable. Has a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, but it's been a long time since she's gotten a win. I mean, if you look at Jessica Penne, we'll quickly pull her up. It's been years since she's won a fight in the cage. It's been years since she's fought. It's been since, 2014. She beat Ronda Marcos by a split decision. That's her lone UFC win. She's on a 3-fight losing streak. Lupita Godinez, definitely an exciting prospect. Beat Vanessa Demopoulos by a majority decision. Has some wins here. Not the most high-level competition, but I still feel she'll be able to win here. Godinez is a pretty good striker with quality boxing skills. She likes a lot of head movement, clear edge on the feet. For Lupita Godinez, I feel like she's going to get the stoppage win. I think she can do it in the third round against Jessica Penne. So I'm going to pick Lupita Godinez to beat Jessica Penne by a TKO in the third. Odds for this fight, -305. Favorite is Lupita. Penne at the +240 dog. I wouldn't say that Lupita is a -305 type bet. I don't think she's worth it at the -305. Maybe if you want to throw less down on her, but it's a riskier pick. I mean, lesser experienced girl, 5 losses for Jessica Penne, just 5 fights for Lupita Godinez. So at the end of the day, we'll see what happens when they get in the cage. Definitely feel like Lupita should win, but Penne could come and surprise us. Maybe not the best bet on the favorite, but definitely not a ton of faith in the underdog in this matchup. But still going to ride Lupita for the win. The next fight of the night. This one will be in the heavyweight division, and it is a very interesting and similar stylistic clash here. Both are phenomenal when it comes to the wrestling skills. Both are known for submissions. Both are very dangerous when they get in the top position. Alexander Romanov versus Juan Espino. This is going to be a very interesting fight. With Romanov, he has very good wrestling. He has, a background and competed at a fairly high level for his country with wrestling. Dangerous from the top position, creative submissions. You saw that in his last fight against Rogerio de Lima. Lots of top pressure. And definitely is going to be a tricky fight for a lot of these heavyweights to deal with. But who could potentially be the guy to spoil the undefeated streak of Romanov? It's a fighter with a similar style. Espino is an excellent wrestler. Has that Senegalese African style because he did wrestle there and compete there. Actually went 7-0, which is a pretty good accomplishment. I mean, the guy definitely has unique grappling abilities, is high level when it comes to the ground, and this is no easy fight for Alexander Romanov. The top game is extremely dangerous for Espino. He has very dangerous submission skills. I feel like both their wrestling could potentially cancel one another out. And on the feet, there's a 5-inch reach advantage for Juan Espino. He's also an inch taller. The weight advantage will slightly favor Alexander Romanov, but I don't think Espino is going to be an easy fight here. And at the +120, I actually like Juan Espino to get the win. I think he could beat Alexander Romanov here. If there's anybody with the style to do it, it's Juan Espino. He dominates everybody they've put in his path. Granted, hasn't had that many UFC fights. I believe 2 since the Ultimate Fighter victory. Long layoff for him. He fought in 2018 and then in 2020. He won that Ultimate Fighter season. I feel like at 40 years old, Juan Espino still has a bit left in the tank, and I feel like he could beat our boy Alexander Romanov. I like Romanov a lot. He's a fun fighter, but he's never fought a guy like Juan Espino. And I think Espino really plays the spoiler here. So I'm actually going to pick him to win this fight. I think could be a decision victory, could potentially even be a submission win for him. Less likely I see a TKO on the ground. We might see some striking, though. We could see a knockout. They could cancel each other's grappling out. There's a few ways this could go, but I do think Juan Espino has the upper hand, and I'm going to pick him, the dog, to win this matchup, which would be a pretty good upset against the undefeated Alexander Romanov. Next fight of the night, Tracy Cortez and Justine Kish. Cortez, definitely a hot prospect, girl on the rise. You know, pretty good kickboxing skills, but definitely shines in the wrestling department when she gets on top, has a lot of control, and can work a lot of females from there. With Justine Kish, definitely an awkward striker and definitely hittable from range. Does have some solid leg kicks in her own right and isn't bad on the ground. I do like the younger girl here in Tracy Cortez. She has the youth advantage. Granted, that's not the biggest factor. I just feel skill set wise, she's going to pose problems for Justine Kish. And I think a competitive decision win for Tracy Cortez is a realistic outcome here at the minus 250. I think the odds are a bit too widespread for her. The plus 195 dog, Justine Kish. I don't love the bet on Tracy Cortez, but I do like the pick here, and I think she gets it done. And I think it is a fairly safe bet, but at the minus 250, it's not the best line. I think the odds could have been a bit closer, especially, I mean, with the inexperience of Cortez, not even 10 pro fights. This will be her 10th fight, but still, I do think Cortez should win in this fight. Let's get the next fight of the night up. We've arrived at the main card, and this is a fun fight to start it off in the featherweight division. I feel like Ricardo Ramos has a ton of potential, but man, hasn't fully lived up to it, at least not yet. Struggled in his last fight against Lerone Murphy. Bill Algeo came in and gave hell to Ricardo Lamas. I feel like Bill Algeo definitely underrated on the betting lines right now. He's a minus 110 dog to the minus 120 favorite, Ricardo Ramos. I love a pick on Bill Algeo as the underdog. He's a taller man by 3 inches, will have an 1.5 inch reach advantage, but he will have that leg length advantage. Very good kickboxing style Algeo brings to the table. He's very rangy, and he does like to keep his hands low. He mixes it up very well, and he also can grapple at a high level. Ricardo Ramos is a very creative striker, but questionable fight IQ, in my opinion. Tends to throw some weird strikes. In his last fight, he was throwing like that back leg kick. Wasn't much of a point there. It's high-level BJJ, though, he'll bring on the ground. But still, I feel like Ramos is just going to make too many mistakes. Bill Algeo would catch him with something. I'm going to predict Bill Algeo to get a stoppage victory in this matchup by TKO in the second or third round here over Ricardo Ramos. I like the dog pick, especially these close of pick'ems. I like the dog, though, here. I think the 31-year-old Bill Algeo has proven himself at a high level, gave Ricardo Ramos hell in that fight, and I feel like he's going to beat Ricardo Ramos here. Both exciting guys to watch. The next fight, Luis Pena and Alex Munoz. This was a very tricky fight here. I feel like, you know, obviously striking advantage I have to pick is going to be Violent Bob Ross. He's a southpaw with very technical kickboxing, and he's super tall at 6'3", and he does have a really nasty 1-2 down the center line. Munoz, though, brings in an excellent wrestling background. He does like to throw the big overhands, and he is very physically strong. Violent Bob Ross is 6'3" at 155, Munoz 5'9". In the clinch, you got to think that Munoz will be the stronger of the two. He's just naturally more muscular than Luis Pena. I like the striking of Pena, and if it's at range, I think he can pick apart Munoz, but I feel like Munoz is going to look to close distance, look to make this a gritty and dirty fight, and that's where he shines. I'm going to pick Alex Munoz at the plus 110 underdog to beat Violent Bob Ross. Luis Pena, he's dropped fights in the past. He lost to Kama Worthy in his last fight. Hasn't had the greatest of performances. And I mean, Alex Munoz is no easy out. 6-1 is approach. Trains at Team Alpha Male. I'm going to ride Munoz to win a close decision here over Violent Bob Ross, Luis Pena. At the plus 110, I like the odds. Pena minus 140 isn't a terrible pick, even as a favorite, but I just feel the underdog in this matchup. And I think Munoz pulls it off by a decision in this fight. Now, the next fight is going to be Abdul Razak Alhassan versus Jacob Malhoun. Alhassan's moving up a weight class to 185. He's not matched up against a big 185er, though. I think that's a good move there because I think he would have struggled against the bigger guys. Only 5'9" is Jacob Malhoun. Malhoun does have some pretty good hands. He has a pro boxing background, 3-0. Granted, the guys he were fighting were not the most high level, still got in there and boxed, still does have some good punching. Where in his last fight, 18-second, Phil Hawes put him unconscious. Abdul Razak Alhassan also coming off a quick knockout loss to Chaos Williams. Prior to that, Munir Lazez beat him, but he did have moments in that Lazez fight. He attacked him early and unloaded with big punches. I mean, Abdul Razak Alhassan is known for the first-round knockout. He's explosive and brings serious knockout power to the table, but he goes for it. And if he does not get it, chances are he's not winning a decision. He's a first-round knockout guy or bust. I feel like he could get Malhoun out of here in the first, but if Malhoun can play it smart, box from the outside and move, I could see him winning it. I'll be honest, if the fight gets out of the first round, I think the odds of Malhoun winning spike significantly. But I just can't pick Jacob Malhoun, who was knocked out in 18 seconds, unproven at 4-1, against a guy who's 10-3, has some decent wins on the resume, Sabah Homasi and Nico Price. I'm going to pick Abdul Razak Alhassan to get the knockout in the first round here over Jacob Malhoun. Not the most confident pick. It's not worth a minus 290. He's not a guy I'm going to go throw the house on, but it is a solid pick. Minus 290. Don't love the bet in this fight, but I like the pick of Abdul Razak Alhassan. The plus 240 dog, sure, Malhoun definitely has a puncher's chance. He does have the boxing background, but I just don't think it's all that likely, especially after that very rough debut and not that much experience. If he goes out there and proves us wrong, I'd be very impressed, but I'm still going to ride Abdul Razak Alhassan, but I'm going to tell you to skip the bet on this fight. Next fight of the night is going to be fireworks in the heavyweight division. I feel like this fight is going to deliver for the fans, man. I am pumped to see these two collide. It's a fight between Andrei Arlovski and Chase Sherman. Sherman was recently the bare knuckle BKFC champion. He has good striking, has definitely gotten a lot better. His leg kicks are very nasty. He's got really good kickboxing. Also, his elbows in the clinch are dangerous, and he is known for pressuring his opponents. Andrei Arlovski, tons of fighting experience. He's a very good striker. He mixes it up at an extremely high level and does have a lot of power in his hands, but his last 6 wins are all by decision, and that dates back a long time now. I believe that dates back to the Stefan Struve fight. Might have been in 2000, was it 15? Let's see if we can load up the record here. Stefan Struve. No, it's actually prior to that. Excuse me. It was the win over Frank Mir by a decision. That was in 2015. He got his last stoppage against Travis Brown in 2015. Hasn't got a stoppage since then. He was on a big momentum streak at that point. Look at that. Decision. All decisions since then. And he can be caught and put away. His last 2 losses are finishes. He was hurt in both those fights. Chase Sherman, I believe, brings a more difficult test than either Bozier or Felipe Lins. Chase Sherman can strike. He's definitely gotten a lot better over the years. Look at the win streak for him here. I mean, he lost to Augusto Sakai. That's a forgivable defeat. Then he went on a pretty solid streak here and, just lost that one fight in bare knuckle by decision to Joey Beltran. But I feel like that's great experience. He's going to make it dirty with Arlovski. I'll be honest, I like the Chase Sherman pick for the dog here. It's hard for me to say bet on Arlovski. If you're going to place a bet it on the younger man, Chase Sherman. He takes a pretty good punch. He has the bare knuckle championship experience. I take that into consideration. He's coming in with a 1-inch height and reach advantage. I feel like Andrei Arlovski is going to get touched here at some point, and I think that Chase Sherman wins this bout, and I think he does so by TKO or knockout in the 3rd round. I don't think it's early, and I think Arlovski may actually beat him in the first round, round and a half, even 2 rounds. But in that 3rd round, I think Sherman will eventually find the chin. Arlovski is going to get pressured here. I think it's a fun fight. If Arlovski is able to get a stoppage win, that would be epic for him, but doesn't seem like that. He hasn't gotten one in a very long time, and I feel like Chase Sherman will get one over Arlovski. I'm going to pick Sherman to win it at the plus 135. I like the dog in this fight. Andrei Arlovski at 42, Sherman at 31. I like the younger fighter. I think he's developed and gotten a lot better over the years. The next fight is Drakkar Klose and Jeremy Stephens. It's also the co-main event of the night. And if you're talking about entertaining fights, go watch that Beneil Dariush Drakkar Klose fight. It was one of the best fights. I mean, the combinations in that 2nd round, they were unloading on each other in the knockout. Epic matchup. Drakkar Klose is an aggressive striker. He does have some decent power in the hands. Granted, not so many finishes on the record. Most of his wins do come by decision in the UFC. Does have some decent wrestling defense, but sometimes the chain wrestlers can wear him on him a bit. I do think Drakkar Klose, though, is a dangerous fight for Jeremy Stephens, moving back up to 155. Stephens, a very explosive striker and some punching power, like big-time punching power, but doesn't always land the big shots because he'll overload and he won't set them up as much. He'll just look for the big punch. But when he mixes it up, he does it extremely well. You need to watch out for his body kicks too. And at times he'll throw caution to the wind, as will Drakkar Klose. I think there is a chance that these guys bring hell to this fight. I think it's definitely a bit of a pick'ems fight here. Even though Jeremy Stephens a ton of high-level experience, I can't say for certain that he goes out there and knocks out Drakkar Klose. Klose is going to bring it. I do think Jeremy Stephens should win, and I hope Drakkar Klose is willing to engage in a brawl. And then I would predict Stephens wins by knockout. If Klose surprises us with a very wrestling-heavy game plan, could potentially give Stephens some threat. Granted, I do feel he'll want to outstrike Jeremy Stephens and put on a show for the fans. I'm going to predict Stephens by a TKO here. I could see it in the second round. I could also see a decision. I could see a competitive back and forth. Drakkar Klose may have his moment and win this fight as well. But I am going to ride Jeremy Stephens to win it. He's the minus 150 favorite to the plus 120 dog. Don't love the betting in this fight because it's a puncher's fight. This is a striking battle, most likely. But I do think Stephens, for the victory, is a very realistic outcome here. The next fight of the night is our main event of the evening. It's going to be epic. I cannot wait to see this fight. Robert Whittaker, looking very good as of late. 2 straight wins, beat Darren Till, and beat Gerald Cannonier in that last fight. Kelvin Gastelum coming off the win over Ian Heinisch, but did drop 3 straight bouts. And has not looked the same since that Adesanya fight. His boxing's not what it once was. He was badly dropped in that fight. He took a ton of damage there. Robert Whittaker has looked excellent as of late. The striking looks to be on a mastery level. He's mixing it up extremely well. Beating the brakes off Gerald Cannonier was very impressive, in my opinion. Whittaker moves very well. He mixes it up well. He's got very dangerous head kicks that you have to watch out for. And he's got a high-level ground game. He competes in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and he has extremely good takedown defense. Gastelum, pretty solid striker, and definitely in his prime. Granted, he's only 29. He still should be in his prime, but hasn't looked that great as of late. His boxing's very dangerous, though. Does have knockout wins in the past, but in his last fight versus Ian Heinisch, primarily grappled. I hope Kelvin Gastelum shows up and gives the Gastelum that we're used to seeing. I do think Kelvin will give his best. I really do think he goes out there and puts on the best performance he can, but I just think Whittaker is too precise. I think he outstrikes him from range, and I think a Whittaker knockout here is realistic. I'm seeing it in the 4th round. I could also see it sooner. It really depends on what game plan Gastelum brings. I think Gastelum will look to take this fight to the ground. I think Whittaker will defend. I think he'll counter-strike. I think Gastelum will start getting worn out, and I think we could see Robert Whittaker be the first man to knock out Kelvin Gastelum. He's a minus 260 favorite to the plus 200 dog. I could see the odds being closer because both are very high level, but the losing streak of Gastelum hasn't looked great in his past few. I'd probably say the Adesanya loss he did look great in, but I mean his past 3 fights, even the win in the last bout, I wasn't all that impressed, whereas Whittaker beat Darren Till, who's absolutely difficult in game, and granted Gastelum also recently lost to Darren Till on a scorecard. That fight was not the best fight either, to be honest. A lot of holding by Till there. I like Robert Whittaker here, but I do think Gastelum could give him a tricky fight. I definitely do, but I'm picking 4th round TKO, Robert Whittaker. I like the minus 260 favorite. It's an okay bet, not the best bet of the night. Overall, pretty fun card. I'm excited to see this main event. I'm excited to see pretty much every fight on the card. Definitely some notable fights. I mean, we got to talk about the fight between Alexander Romanov and Juan Espino one more time. You guys need to tune in for this heavyweight battle because both are elite level grapplers, both unbeaten in the UFC, and I think both could potentially be contenders, but Espino being 40, it's now or never. He needs to go on a streak. He needs to get them together. If he beats Romanov, I think he does get a big fight. Ricardo Ramos and Bill Algeo to start it off with the main card. That's an excellent battle. The Luis Pena fight and Alex Munoz, as I mentioned, that's pretty much a pick'ems fight. I think it could go either way. And then Chase Sherman, Andrei Arlovski. If you are a fan of striking, you need to tune into that fight. Same with the Malhoun and Alhassan fight. Sherman being, the bare knuckle champion at one point, and then Klose versus Stephens. Overall, the card, top to bottom, excellent card. I really enjoyed film studying and covering this. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure you guys smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, follow my social media, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, and make sure you check out the weigh-in recap, which I'll be doing later on in the week, give you guys the final predictions, and if anything changes, we'll definitely let you know in that video. Thank you all so much, and I'll see you guys in the next video.